All right, Run It Back Nation. Welcome back. I am one of your hosts, Joy. Alongside with me is Wes. How you doing today, Wes?
Hi, Running Back Nation, and hi, Joy. I am doing very well today. Very juicy details going on to tonight's podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we got a lot of stuff covered that we're gonna be covering this week, from the Bahrain Grand Prix reviews, and you're gonna get our predictions right away for the Sakhir Grand Prix this upcoming Sunday. So yeah,
Well, Joy, this past weekend's race, Bahrain Grand Prix, all I can say is wow. I'm serious
right,
because
right.
look, I mean, who knew that something crazy was
What
going to
happened?
happen
Right,
in lap one?
right, right.
And it didn't take that many turns for it to happen.
Didn't.
And
First
then,
lap.
right. And, we had a very lengthy delay. It, I don't know about you, Joy, but watching all of that, it messed me up, especially during the 2 hour break. I couldn't process it. And then, once all that was cleared up, that we had a safety car right away. And then it just got a little more weird. And then once the race restarted, it then just became another Lewis dominated race until the last couple laps. And commiserations for Checo Perez. He was doing so well, and then all of a sudden his car catches on fire. But other than that, a good race from one of my drivers to watch, and you know, for those that I didn't expect to do well, that happened to work out well too. And yeah, but action packed and a lot of the unexpected, but at the same time, we should be thankful to be watching this era of Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you, Wes. Yeah. Uh, I tweeted or, I even posted on social media that like I thought this was gonna be the first time I've ever witnessed a death in Formula One. Of course, like the most recent one was Antoine Hubert, but at that time I wasn't really interested in Formula Two. And the most recent Formula One death was Jules Bianchi, right? At that time, I wasn't watching Formula One, and you know, Lewis hit it on the head, right, with his social media post. This is still a dangerous sport. Um, Driving around in 200 miles an hour in tracks and racing wheel to wheel with open wheeled cars. There's always going to be an element of danger, no matter how safe the cars are. And this is the most strangest circumstance that I've seen in a crash. Because just the details of the crash, like in the first lap, we all know that like the first lap of either a Formula One start or a Formula One restart after a red flag, it's always going to be the most craziest. It's going to be the most where a lot of stuff happens, a lot of the action happens, and so yeah, I didn't really. I was excited for the Bahrain Grand Prix because it's one of my favorite tracks. I just didn't think it was gonna be how it started. So yeah,
Yeah, with the Grosjean crash, right? More as we talk more about it. Um, yeah, like you hit it on the head. I thought that was gonna be the first time I've seen a death in Formula One. Now with Hubert's case, I like yourself, I wasn't watching too much Formula Two, but I didn't think that I would see a death in modern racing anyway,
right,
right? And then of course, we talk about Jules Bianchi, and when you see the footage of that it was just gruesome, right?
right,
Because
right,
in Jules Bianchi's case, he crashed into a crane, no halo around at that time.
right,
But as I alluded to earlier, we are thankful to be watching this era of Formula One because of that halo and the survival cell.
right,
You know,
absolutely.
Roman Grosjean is still alive, and he may be all bandaged up. I don't think he is bandaged up anymore, but So I'll take that back. But for him to walk out of there and have the right personnel come by and rescue him, and in a heartbeat practically,
Mm-hmm.
you know, well, it's really amazing to see how far the FIA has come to make this as safe a sport as possible. And I wish it doesn't happen again.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I want to credit, Michael Massey. I want to credit Charlie Whiting, the Hans device, and the Halo, right? Like, with the Halo, Jules Bianchi's life probably could have been saved. Um, and, that, like, that's the thing about Formula One. There's so much that we've accomplished in safety that Romain Grosjean was able to walk away from it. And even then, after that crash, the Formula One is doing investigations on how to make things a lot safer, not just for Grosjean, but even for the medical staff. And so yeah, even for the marshals as well. So yeah, I will say, I was against the Halo when it came out. I just thought it didn't. It looked so alien to the car, but now the proof is right there. It's in my face, and I'm so glad that we implemented it.
Absolutely, Joy. And to supplement your point of the marshals and the medical car staff, yeah, you bring up a good point because the marshals don't have anything at all really,
Right,
minus their that safety helmet, and then the doctors and the medical car driver. They have the faceless kind, like the open kind.
right,
So
right,
that's something to revise, right? Because they were facing the fire literally.
right.
But for what it's worth, we're happy that everyone's safe, everyone is still
Mm.
around, and we wish nothing but a speedy recovery for Roman Grosjean.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, we could see him back in Abu Dhabi. He's so adamant about it, but of course, health comes first,
Right, right. Absolutely.
always. So
Yeah,
yeah, speedy recovery, Roman Grosjean.
yeah. And I also, one last point about Romain Grosjean. I mean, the guy showed up in the paddock a couple days ago with this huge smile on his face, and he was hugging everyone that was there, that was assisting him, that helped him, that saved his life. And even Roman, like, still had a smile in his face in the hospital, and yeah, especially when Crofty said that he has three boys back at home. That really hit me because, man, like, we those three boys could have lost a father, and thank God that Formula One saved him. Thank God the marshal saved him. Thank God we're at this point where we were able to make sure that someone had a father. And so yeah, yeah. Any more points, Wes?
No, I think you really brought it home there, and yeah, well wishes too to the Grosjean family.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So now let's move on to the Bulls and Bears for our Bahrain Grand Prix picks, right? So Wes, take us through your Bulls for this week and your Bears as well.
To our listeners, the reason why Joy kind of chuckled there is because my Bulls perform like complete horse crap. Okay. So, for those that are new to the show, Bulls and Bears is a concept that we came up with where our bulls,
Right.
emulating a bull market in trading, is drivers that we want to look out for throughout the
Mm.
weekend. In a bear market, which is the complete opposite, drivers that we don't want to put our bets on or put our hopes on. So my bulls for last week were Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel,
Mm.
and Lewis. Okay, Lewis did the Lewis. Okay, and that was pretty good. I'm
Right.
happy with the return I got
Right.
with Lewis Hamilton, dominated from start to finish.
1 for 3 is not bad.
Maybe in baseball, but not here. But Leclerc and Vettel, I picked both of them because I was on the hype train that no Mattia Binotto, maybe Leclerc and Vettel will perform
Mm.
substantially well. Yeah, never have I been more wrong in my life.
Right.
And Joy, when we do Bulls and Bears in the future, remember to remind me to not pick Ferrari. So yeah, the one time I tried to trust him, it doesn't work out, and I think I learned my lesson. So
Yeah,
that's all I really have on my Bulls.
yeah. Well, I mean, you, yeah, you hit it right on the head, right? Lewis just goes on to do Lewis stuff, winning the Grand Prix pretty much. And Leclerc, he seems to have these magical first laps in the beginning, and then he just has to struggle and like watch other cars pass him throughout the entire race because he just doesn't have the pace. He has incredible starts where he just kind of dives everyone. Seems to me like in a corner, probably T1. But yeah, Vettel, he he just did not like his car at the weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. It goes from being pretty good to undrivable. I don't understand. I really don't. But I do digress. But yes, 1 for 3, not so good.
Right.
If I was a stock trader, I would have been out of a work for ever, basically, because I picked these three and only one of them panned out.
Well, I think you did a lot better in your Bears.
Oh heck yes, I got 3 for 3,
3 for 3.
but in a market that's trending downward, so that just kind of doesn't erase the pain, but it's not as it could have been a whole lot
Right,
worse.
it could have been a whole lot worse.
So
Definitely.
my Bears were Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon, Kevin Magnussen.
Hmm.
Um, and Bottas, I felt like was already kind of out of it once Lewis already claimed the title.
Hmm.
And it just so happened that during the race, he had a lot of tire puncture issues.
Right.
Turns out he only changed 3 tires in one of his stops, which I find really amazing. There's no other racing series I see only that or do a partial change of tires except for like IndyCar and NASCAR,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
But yeah, no,
Well, I
it was
think
kind
you
of
would have
weird.
to. You would still have to like you would still have to like change like one whole side of the car. You can't just change one tire from like one side of the car.
Well, right, and in Bottas's case, they changed 3, so it must have been. I didn't really see which ones they really took off,
Right. Right.
but and either way, it was kind of weird.
It's weird.
But
Yeah.
yeah, with Ocon and Magnussen, I mean, they haven't been in form all season,
Mm.
really. And it doesn't help that the cameras don't really show them as much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's probably a reason why that is.
Right.
And yeah, they didn't really perform well. On Renault's side, it looked like Ricardo was going to carry the group like I predicted last week, and that seemed
Mm.
to be the case, more likely than not, right?
Right.
And then Magnussen, even though he was the only Haas in the fight, I mean, it's not like he was going to pull a Hollywood drive and all of a sudden get into the podium positions because his teammate went down.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, to kind of go off of that, Ocon did score, a ninth place, which is not that bad, but I think I agree with you. That Renault should be a lot faster based on like what we've seen previously, especially on power tracks, right? Especially against McLaren. McLaren pretty much just like cleaned the house with the points this week. Well, not the entire points, but you know what I mean, against Racing Point and against Renault. So yeah.
Well, right, right, right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
So
Right.
P9, okay, yeah, you get what, 2 points,
Yeah.
right? But you are in a fight for fourth.
Right. Right.
And
And yeah.
finishing ninth when your teammate is substantially higher, that doesn't
Mm,
help.
right.
That doesn't help. You're pretty much throwing it away to both Racing Point and McLaren
Absolutely.
at that point. So
And Gasly finished ahead of him. Right.
there you go.
Right. Right.
See?
So.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't help your team's cause, especially when you're trying to turn the corner from being a up and comer to a contender.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's the reason why I had Ocon a few weeks in a row.
Mm.
But yeah, and it just happened to come to reality on Sunday.
Well, Wes, I think I also would have been fired for my picks for my Bulls this week. I picked Verstappen, Ricardo, and Russell. Now, I've been picking Russell for quite a while because I just want him to get that last point or for that first point, right? Well, Verstappen, like Bottas wasn't really there, so Verstappen was gonna show up. I always, you kind of know that Verstappen's always gonna show up whenever someone's absent from like the Mercedes. So this is incredible, right? Verstappen's driving the wheels out of that car, and he's taking massive points after the races, and like I think he might steal second place if Bottas doesn't get his stuff together soon. So, which is gonna be embarrassing for Bottas, right? Especially when I think we can all agree that the Mercedes is a lot more faster than the Red Bull. I don't know why it took me a while to say that, but yeah. Other than that, Ricardo, again, I thought the Renaults were gonna beat the McLarens in this race. Especially when Sainz had those penalties, and so that pretty much brought him to the back of the grid. But like it seems as though like the McLarens, they were able to control their tires a lot better. And yeah, Ricardo didn't really perform that well as much as I'd like. He was about to pass Gasly until that Sergio Perez yellow flag or safety car. So yeah, which is it's a shame, but I do think that Ricardo should have at least. I actually saw Ricardo getting at least like fifth in this race, but that wasn't the case. So especially, the midfield battle is tightening up. So yeah, and Russell, I mean, he was in the Williams. I mean, he's always going to be in the Williams, except for this week and hopefully next week for Abu Dhabi. But yeah, Russell, I didn't really see much of him in the race, right? So yeah, but still incredible P12, right? That was incredible. He even beat Sebastian Vettel. I don't know. Wes. You tell me. Like, is this a loss for Russell because he did manage to get P12? Maybe I'm considering it a loss because I kind of have more higher expectations. I shouldn't have, but I just want Russell to get that P10 at some point in the season with perhaps the Williams. May not be possible anymore, but yeah.
Well, I mean, when it comes to George, he's showing us time and time again why he's a potential once in a generation talent, right? And P12, that P11 P12 range is the best I think he can get out of that Williams.
Okay, so it's a win.
So I don't think he can get the. I mean, it's possible to get P10. I mean, look at Imola. Right. It was possible, but he's human.
Right.
He's gonna
Absolutely.
make mistakes throughout his career. It's not like that one big shunt is gonna cause him to not get points ever.
Hopefully not in the Mercedes.
And something tells me that this week would change all of that for some reason. I wonder why.
I wonder why.
But I wouldn't be so hard on myself with George.
Okay.
Just because
maybe I'm a little too hard on George.
Especially when you're taking the worst car in the grid that far.
Right.
I think there's a lot to be happy about.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, I mean.
Okay.
So I would say you were what, 2 for 3?
2 for 3.
Yeah. So, Max is gonna max. Ricardo, yes, I think we could have gotten a lot more out of Danny Rick than what was actually put across the line. But when it comes to your Bulls, man, I'm happy for you. You got a pretty good return.
Yeah.
Unlike me.
Yeah. Sorry, George. I should have. That's a win. P12. I'm sorry. But yeah, let's move on to my Bears. I thought Albon, Perez, and Giovinazzi weren't gonna do so well, and I don't know. I think I'm 1 for 3. I guess you could say that Albon did well, even without, even if Perez still crossed the line. I think Red Bull would have been fairly happy with Albon finishing 4th behind Perez. Now, of course, he has to finish ahead of Perez, but yeah, It's weird. Like now I feel like Albon actually has gained a little bit control of that Red Bull seat. I don't think Red Bull. I think he's giving Red Bull no reason to look elsewhere but him. So yeah, it's a weird feeling with Albon. I feel like he is inheriting like these incredible, not incredible, but okay positions, okay results. But yeah, I mean, I think he did okay. He wasn't spectacular. I thought he could have gone a little bit faster, probably like actually overtake Perez. But yeah, Perez, of course, he did incredible. He did great throughout the entire race. Right, P3. He was gonna be lining up for like a second consecutive podium. Right. So, but yeah. Of all the engines that fails in the grid, it's the most you least expect. It's the Mercedes engine. So, but yeah, you could tell he was so frustrated because he just kept pushing the car towards the finish line, and to the point where he actually, I think he had to get take the old engines like that he used early in the season. He had to get a new chassis because he melted the floor. So yeah, I mean that's frustration for Perez and Giovinazzi. Didn't really see a lot of Antonio in the race. Didn't really see a lot out of the Alfa Romeos just in general. So yeah, P16. You know, that is horrific, especially when Russell and Latifi finish ahead of you. But it seems as though like the Alfa Romeos are struggling in the Bahrain track.
Yeah, I think you had a really safe pick with Giovinazzi,
Mm.
right? Because to me, he's pretty volatile, and that's not to say Kimi has done that
Mm.
much better.
Alpha
I think
does Alpha doesn't seem to think so. They
I
kept,
I I think it's a down year really for
right
both,
for both.
and yeah, they don't show much of that
Mm.
back marker action anyhow. So I can see why you picked Giovinazzi, and I don't know how he's gonna do for the rest of the year. And to me, it's still, even though it's way after the fact that the seats are gonna remain the same at Alpha for next year is beyond me. But
Okay,
that's
right.
that's a different conversation for another day.
Well,
Checo,
right.
what? Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. Well, I was about to say like, should we rate our Bulls and Bears based on their overall performance or just the result? Because I would say like Perez did well. He outperformed Albon, but he just didn't get a better result than Albon.
Well, I mean, I think you can make your own conclusions up to that, right?
Okay. Okay.
If you feel that they're not what to watch for
Mm.
Bears,
Mm.
then that's why they should be there,
Okay.
right? And of course, the only gain that those drivers can get about being our Bears is to prove us wrong.
Right.
So back to what I was saying, Checo, that's commiserations. I think he got you on that one. It was
Yeah.
going to be a podium finish, and you did say that he's pretty good with more straightforward, not too crazy technical tracks,
Right. Right. Absolutely.
and that Bahrain is one of them.
Right.
So yeah, I hope he can do something remarkable this weekend, even though
Right.
he might have to start further down because of the changes to the car, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, real impressed with how he performed. Was really banking on him to get the two in a row until his car caught on fire.
Right.
And Albon is making it really, really hard for Red Bull.
Yeah.
I want him to succeed. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really do. I really do.
But
But
I thought Hulkenberg or Perez had that seat. Like it was just either Hulkenberg or Perez. But now Albon has kind of gone to the mix by default.
I mean, you always have to put incumbents
Right. Right.
into consideration. You can't just really throw them away like that.
Mm.
But I still think he won't be in that seat next year anyhow.
Okay.
But it will be a harder decision for Red Bull to make than it was 3 weeks ago, three,
Right.
4 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, way to have a good initial judgment of the Bears, only for it to not pan out towards the end of the race.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So yeah, let's move on to the hot laps. So this is the section of our podcast where we share with you the latest F1 news and the latest F1 rumors. Not a lot of rumors circling around this week. Just the rumors became the news because they happened to be true. But yeah, Wes.
Yes, so our first story of the day, Schumacher and Mazepin officially to Haas. So now two more seats on the grid are confirmed, and although everybody seems to know, I think secrets are not well kept in Formula One.
Right.
I don't think, but
Right.
but hey, we are now in the Mick Schumacher era
Right.
of Formula One.
Mm.
So for those that have been watching the sport for a long time, you might be in awe because that name comes back to the grid, and he gets to be paired with someone that has talent but at the same time comes with a need for Haas, which is money.
Right.
Since Haas is a very small privateer team, and you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how this team performs with a rugged, rough and tough team principal and two rookies controlling the cars.
Right. Right.
And I can already sense it already that people are going to have these mile high expectations for Mick, and perhaps people picking on Mazepin for being the next Lance Stroll. So I'm a little worried for Nikita Mazepin there, but
Well,
th-
actually, that's good you brought that point up. Is because I don't know if you've seen the highlights for the Formula Two qualifying, but Schumacher made contact with Roy Nissany, and I think he will start 18th tomorrow. And I think I think Mazepin qualified third for Formula Two, which opens the championship up, right, with Schumacher all the way back to the 18th, right? To 18th. There's no points award for 18th. But yeah, this championship could be wrapped up in the feature race instead of the sprint. So yeah, it's funny. Like we could see Nikita Mazepin actually win the Formula Two championship. But I do agree with you. I think Schumacher is much better. I think Schumacher is much better. I think Schwartzman's a lot better. I think Callum Ayla is a lot better. Sonoda has pole position tomorrow, so we will see.
oh well, that's really good to know, Joy. To be honest, I didn't really follow up. Well, I did know Mick was 18th and Eilert was 9th because that's who they're really watching
Right.
going into that race. But the point I was trying to make earlier was it'll be interesting to see.
Right.
Uh, and that's, to me, the direct comparisons that people might make about those two drivers already
Mm.
before they even put laps in officially for Haas.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's no longer a secret. Never was. It's official. Schumacher and Mazepin to Haas. And really looking forward to see how the duo performs for the American team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so yeah, for our second news for today. Unfortunately, there's a reason why, George Russell is seen in the Mercedes, right? It's Lewis Hamilton who tested positive for COVID. So yeah, Wes, what do you have for Lewis Hamilton's COVID-19 case?
Well, what I have on his COVID-19 case is that he had two negatives prior,
Mm.
and then he woke up one day earlier in the week with mild symptoms, and he had to take a test again, and the test came back positive. So as a result, I believe it's 10 days that he has to stay away, which would force him out of this week's race. And Mercedes was hit with a big decision to go with either George Russell, Stoffel Van Dorn, or I believe it was Nico Hulkenberg to be his replacement. And ultimately, they went with George Russell
Right.
uh, because I guess he was the closest, right? Stoffel was out in Valencia testing for Mercedes Formula E.
Mm.
Hulkenberg, you would have had to fly in and do all the tests all over again, so that takes a little bit of time. Unlike Russell, you have the information already, and he's already a Mercedes driver,
Right. Right.
as is just, I guess, on loan, if you will, to
Right.
Williams. So, yeah, I mean, it's very shocking, right?
Right.
Because for someone who has a big following and a big platform as Lewis, he actually never missed a race up until this week. Did
Up
you
until
know that, Joy?
yeah, yeah, it's insane, right? Like the guy is consistent. He will show up for the team.
Yeah, and and thankfully, he's never gotten suspended or anything like that.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, for him to miss a race, I mean that I think to me that just describes how 2020 is. We're seeing a lot of strange things, not just sports, but
Right.
in this case, in the world of sport, Formula One, we're seeing strange things, and in this case, it's Lewis Hamilton not racing this weekend. But for what it's worth, we wish Lewis Hamilton well. We wish those that have been around him well as well. Hopefully, that it's just symptoms, and that by the following weekend in Abu Dhabi, he's cleared to go racing again. But yes, speedy recovery. It's going to be tough for Mercedes to not have him in the paddock, but
Right.
I think they'll be in good hands come Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you touched up on it a little bit earlier. Um, George Russell, he's gonna replace Lewis Hamilton to Mercedes. There is a video that I will reference. It is pretty much why it's titled "Why Mercedes Had to Replace Hamilton with Russell and What's Really at Stake." It's a great video by the race, voice narrated by Scott Mitchell. But yeah, so Scott Mitchell pretty much just like he goes over why Mercedes picked George Russell over over Stoffel Van Dorn, over Nico Hulkenberg, and it's perfect. Like he articulated it well. It made a lot more sense. This is how Mercedes thinks. This is how Mercedes, they operate. And that's because this is such a unique circumstance where the drivers' championship is wrapped up, the constructors' championship is wrapped up, and if there was a perfect scenario where Lewis could kind of step aside or not be in the picture and have George Russell, go against Valtteri Bottas. I mean, this is the perfect scenario where you could pretty much compare these two drivers against each other. Because earlier in the season, right, Mercedes kind of asked Williams, about George Russell joining Mercedes earlier in the season, but the previous management for Williams blocked it, kind of stepped in, said, we have George until next year. So, and then the current management for Williams pretty much said, we don't want to hold him back any, like, more than once this year. So, yeah, they allowed George Russell to go to Williams when Mercedes picked him. So, this is the perfect scenario, right? Like, they have nothing to lose, but there's still a lot to gain, right? Like, imagine if George, I mean, watching FP1 and FP2, George topped the timesheets, right? He set the fastest laps for both sessions, which is this is crazy. Like, I didn't think George was going to be this fast, but tomorrow, qualifying is going to be the most important. Um, but yeah, this is crazy. Like, he might. I always knew George was going to prove himself against Bottas. I just didn't think it was going to be in the first race of his Mercedes in his Mercedes debut. So yeah. Any thoughts, Wes?
I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's the reason why he's on the team in the first place. They see something in him, and yes, that it's already starting to pay dividends. When
Hmm.
I was checking the FP1 and FP2 times this morning,
Hmm.
I just couldn't help but be amazed. Right?
Right.
Like, dang, man! Like, if it kind of feels like that Mercedes can be plug and play. You can argue that, but at the same time, we're starting to see how talented George Russell
Right.
really is,
This could be the new era of
and
Mercedes.
exactly that could actually show a lot of people like, hey, this isn't just some young guy with a lot of promise. He's the real deal,
Absolutely.
and you're gonna see why come Saturday and Sunday. And oh my gosh, I'm
Right.
already on the Russell train, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I love George Russell. I mean, he was my favorite rookie of the three, Albon, Norris, and Russell. So yeah, this is weird. Like, I just noticed this, Wes, that Mercedes is the only top team, aside from like Red Bull and Ferrari when they were a top team back then. But Mercedes still don't have their future set. You know, like Red Bull has Verstappen, Leclerc. I mean, Ferrari has Leclerc. They already have a junior driver in the top team, ready to go, ready to fight for a championship when the opportunity arises. Mercedes, you know, they still have the reigning world champion Lewis Hamilton, but you could also argue that they don't have their future set, right? As much as, you know, Lewis Hamilton wants to compete, you know, until maybe like in his 40s, probably inspired by Kimi Raikkonen. You know, it's weird. Mercedes is, I think Mercedes is in the back foot when it comes to their junior drivers being in the top team. And so yeah, I think this is a perfect opportunity to see where George is. It seems as though Mercedes puts all of their money in George. Like, if George, you know, is a miss, then the Mercedes Junior program is really a bust. Um, but yeah, yeah, great points. But yeah,
I want to add one point,
sure.
Joy. So again, for our listeners, we are two guys who love Formula One and boxing, which we'll talk about later, that are based in the United States. And the point that Joy was trying to make, it's very reminiscent of a top tier American sports team.
Mm,
So you take baseball or basketball, for example, so the Major League Baseball and the NBA. The good teams usually are already very good from the starting level standpoint, right?
mm,
But in baseball, when that happens, your farm system's usually pretty depleted because
right.
the guys you raised in the farm system are already the
Already,
superstars at the top.
absolutely.
And then in basketball, when you're on an already good team from point guard to center, chances are, and you're winning championships, you're going to pick lower in the draft.
All
And
right, right,
those draft picks are going to barely see any playing time.
right.
And that's the case that I guess you can apply with for Mercedes. That they're so top heavy with Valtteri and Lewis that nobody really thinks about their junior program.
Mm.
So if they were
Yeah.
an American franchise, they would be the perfect American franchise. And speaking of American franchises, our next news story, um, we got a Brazilian American on the grid in Pietro Fittipaldi, subbing in for Roman Grosjean at
Mm.
Haas. And as you and me being proud Americans, Joy, who love Formula One, what do you think about that?
Oh my goodness! Like, you know, I've known. Well, I haven't known like personally, but I've known of Pietro for quite a while now. I follow him on Twitch. I follow him on Instagram, and so like that's the thing. Like, I'm so glad he got the call to replace Roman Grosjean at Haas for a while, because it seems as though not a lot of teams are using the reserve drivers to fill in a teammate that has caught COVID. And so yeah, like I've always thought like this was so cool because I don't know if you know this, Wes, but the reserve driver for Racing Point I think is Stoffel Van Dorn because they share reserve drivers with Mercedes, and Mercedes has Lewis Hamilton who caught COVID. They had Racing Point had Perez who caught COVID. Stroll who I think was it confirmed that he caught COVID or he was just
Stroll
sick?
tested positive for COVID as
Okay,
well.
okay, and then for both of those times for Racing Point, it was Hulkenberg that stepped in, and so like like it's strange when a team has a reserve driver and they don't use them, which is sad. It's a missed opportunity for these reserve drivers who can't wait to have their opportunity. And Pietro is, he is that example for a reserve driver. Like Haas, I agree with them on this one. It should have gone. It went to Pietro. It should have gone to Pietro, and so yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad they picked Pietro instead of looking elsewhere. Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if they went to somebody like Hulkenberg, it's going to be a big adjustment for the car,
right.
right? Because you were driving Mercedes power for the 2, 3 races that you were in.
Right.
Was it 2 or 3?
Two.
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 Okay.
Two.
And then you're driving Ferrari for the 3rd race. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And yeah, I mean, Hulk can probably give you a lot of input,
Right.
but with only one more race left in the season, what else is there to really improve?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but from a I guess a nationalistic as well as structural standpoint, it's cool to see a American driver on the grid,
Right.
Brazilian American. So for those that might not know, Pietro's from Miami, Florida,
Mm.
and his Miami accent really comes out. It's weird observation from me, but I do digress.
Well,
Hold on.
yeah. Go ahead.
And to see an Fittipaldi on the grid too, that's
That's cool.
that's cool, right? Brings carries the tradition of the Fittipaldi name back onto modern Formula One, and yeah, it's good on Haas to use what they had in house, right? Instead of spending too much time trying to look someplace else and look at what they actually have rather than looking at a resume. So I'm really excited for Pietro Fittipaldi to soak in this experience. If I were him, I wouldn't worry too much about the results.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. I want to get the laps in. I want to get the experience in, and it'll be something to talk about for the rest of his life.
Right.
And because who knows if he'll get another Formula One drive after that.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm real happy for Pietro Fittipaldi.
Yeah. You articulated that beautifully, Wes. So yeah. I mean, also another driver that's getting his chance, first chance, his debut in Formula One, is Jack Aitken to Williams. Another team. I mean, I think actually Williams' reserve driver is Jack Aitken. So I guess we have two teams that are using the reserve. Thankfully, I actually thought that Williams was gonna consider Nico Hulkenberg to step in, right? Like you said, using the same Mercedes engine. Yeah, I thought they were gonna go to Hulkenberg after excuse me, after George Russell steps in for Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Wes?
We're being represented on the grid, my man. That's what I think about Jack Aitken being on the grid. But outside of that, though, it's good on Williams again to at least sample what they have.
Absolutely.
Right? Because they are a young team. They're they're trying to get back into greatness. And usually when you're rebuilding, you have to drive or compete as if you have nothing to lose.
Right.
And that's kind of what it is with Williams. And I think Aitken is actually pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I've seen some of his F2 highlights.
Right.
He has a lot of promise, and he fits, I think, the culture of a up and coming team.
Right.
Now, of course, will we see him more consistently after Sunday? That I don't know,
Right.
especially when Williams has Nisani in the
Right.
pipeline as well, and Latifi. So, but again, same with Pietro Fittipaldi. I want Etkin to seize the moment, put in the laps, have fun.
Right.
Doesn't matter where you finish. It because when you compete in a cutthroat competition like F1, you don't know when your next chance is going to be.
Absolutely.
And like I alluded to earlier with representation, for those that again don't know, Ekin is half Korean.
Ah.
So for us to see a Korean person on the grid, another Asian person on the grid, that's good for us. For me and Joy, I mean, and other Asian Formula One fans all over the world, because yeah, I feel like F1, not to get too political, is a very white dominated sport, and we need more diversity in it. And when we have more Lewis's, Fittipaldi's, Albons, Atkins, Sonoda's coming up, and all of that on the grid, it just makes it more interesting to watch, I feel, for greater audiences.
Well said. Well said, Wes. All right, guys. So now let's move on to the Sakhir Grand Prix. Um, yeah. Wes, what's your reactions to the new track layout?
Ross Braun said it's almost like an oval. It would sound more correct if he just said it was a trapezoid. But hey, to me, I think it's cool.
I think it's cool.
Just by watching FP1 and FP2, you see guys pulling sub 1 minute times,
Yep.
right? And that was expected.
Right.
And I feel like at that point, Formula One is pulling out all the stops to provide prime entertainment
Right.
for the fans,
Hmm.
because I think everyone wants to see how good an F1 car would be on a relatively small track.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there's Monaco, but Monaco has all these twists and turns,
Mm.
right? But at Sakhir Outer, it's mostly straights. There's only like what 4 or 5 turns, something like that,
Yeah.
maybe a little less,
Yep.
and it's mostly straights. A lot of DRS zones. I
Right.
think there's like two,
There's two. Yep.
two,
It's
yeah.
the same one from last week.
Okay, yeah. So two DRS zones, and DRS really, really helps the car.
Right.
Obviously, there's no reason or there's no real scenario where it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, it's prime entertainment, and to see those cars break 1 minute laps, sub 1 minute laps, it's like wow. Only in 2020 we're gonna get this, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you, man. I never thought that we were gonna see sub 1 minute laps. I didn't think it would happen in Bahrain. Now, granted, I didn't know that there was actually this layout for Bahrain. I just thought it was just the normal Bahrain circuit. Even though I've seen, um, what do you call it, overhead shots of the track. I knew that there was like kind of roads. I just didn't think that they were part of the track. I just thought that they were like kind of. I thought they were actually like the roads for the safety cars. But yeah, so yeah, I'm super excited. Sub 1 minute time. I think I actually thought that they were gonna add a third DRS zone, the one before the penultimate corner, which is yeah. I thought they were gonna add another one. They didn't. I don't know. We'll see. It does seem as though like the DRS zones kind of create a synthetic racing, so maybe they just didn't want to add another DRS zone because of that reason alone. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this new track layout.
Oh, absolutely. Now that basically means if your car is power heavy, you can literally, you know what that means, Joy?
Yeah,
You can close your eyes just before the 5 red lights go, and you can just go, I am speed. Literally.
Right.
literally. But yes, I do digress on the very, very power hungry outer layout, and yes,
Right.
I'm looking forward to it on Saturday and Sunday.
You know who's not looking forward to it?
Ferrari.
Ferrari. Ferrari's not looking. They're not looking so good. Also in FP1, FP2. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel was complaining about understeer a lot. Even the Red Bulls, but I mean the Ferraris were just off. But yeah, cool. So yeah, let's move on to the Bulls and the Bears this week for the Sakhir Grand Prix. Wes, take us through your Bulls.
Yes, sir. So my bulls for this week: George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen.
Hmm.
Why? Wes, you're picking very top heavy. You're going really safe. Are you burned from last week? Short answer: yes. But for if you've been watching the free practices earlier today, so as we record this, it is Friday night in Chicago, Illinois, United States, and by the time we upload this, it would be just before the FP3 in qualifying.
Right.
And Russell, holy cow!
Right.
Like I understand it's just free practice, but
still.
the guy showed out.
Right.
And you know, when you're in the best car and you're that one guy that's everyone's cheering for to get that first set of points, I think he's put in the best position to do it, and so far he's backing up the hype.
Absolutely.
Now, which also leads into my second bull, Valtteri Bottas. So, okay, he was my bear last week, but he's my bull this week. Why? Because he doesn't have Lewis on the other side. Now, I think this is that one race where he won't have that mental game, right?
Right.
With Lewis. And yeah, okay, fine. You can say if you love free practice that much, you can say he got his ass kicked in free practice.
Right.
But of course, you know, Q1, Q2, Q3 is where it counts. And I think Bottas would technically have the edge, right? Because he's the senior man there.
I believe he will get the preference of strategy if.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But speaking of preference of strategy, it's going to be interesting that the bright green camera gets the preferred strategy. Because if you notice, George had the black camera.
Right.
Not that means anything, but yes, I mean, for Bottas, he has to take advantage of the situation, and it's all straights, you know.
Yeah.
It's all power.
Right.
And you know he has enough racecraft to even go through the simplest of tracks, right?
Right.
I mean, he won the other, I would argue, is the other simple layout, which was Red Bull Ring, right? He won the first race of the season, right?
Oh, for Bottas.
Bottas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, another pretty straightforward track. I could see him doing good things.
Right.
Unless, you know, bull number one gets in his way. Now, Max Verstappen, again, he is, to me, the driver of the year.
Okay.
You know, there's no way in hell that he is on the outside looking in. And I understand that the Honda unit is very volatile. There are some days where it shows that it's hayai, which means very fast in Japanese. And then there are some where Verstappen's just yelling at somebody over the radio.
All right.
But I don't see Red Bull or Verstappen falling short this weekend. I just can't see it.
Right.
But yes, those are my bulls for this week. Now my bears: Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, Kevin Magnussen. Now I'm gonna go 3-2-1 here. Kevin Magnussen. For me, I don't expect much to change for this weekend with Haas. Yes, Magnussen's gonna have a new temporary teammate, and maybe there's gonna be some emotional, rah-rah attitude on let's go out and do our best for Roman.
Right.
But at the same time, you gotta face reality, right?
Right.
When there's more straights, and then the Haas is not the best car in the grid.
Right.
It's kind of hard.
Powered by Ferrari.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to have that, Hollywood ending or not Hollywood ending, but Hollywood penultimate for Haas.
Right.
Right. And although Magnussen, I know we promised not to make fun of Grosjean anymore, but even though Magnussen has been the better Haas driver in my opinion this season, I can't see much happening here.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
Now Leclerc and Vettel. So for those that, I hope you all haven't dozed off yet, but I'm obviously mad at the both of them. So I don't want to talk too much about it other than if you thought the first or the original Bahrain layout is a nightmare, I think this is pretty much the Grim Reaper showing up at the door. So I don't expect much from Ferrari this weekend.
All right, full
And
180.
full 180, yes. And I hope to have a royal flush on both counts, Bulls and Bears this weekend. How about you, Joy? Who do you have as your Bulls and who do you have as your Bears?
Yeah. So for me, I like to take risk. I like to live on the edge. So yeah, I picked Russell, Sainz, and Gasly. I pretty much kind of spread it out in the field. Russell, I think, is gonna impress. I think he's already impressed me with how much pace he has in that car. You know, with very little experience with it, I guess you could say. I mean, it's still the same engine, but um, if you listen to, I think it was FP1 where he was actually asking the engineer, like a yellow light came out in his steering wheel, and he's like, "Oh, what is that, Bono?" And like they were pretty much just telling him like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just a light, right?" And so yeah, it was pretty cool to kind of have that conversation, hear that conversation between this new kid on the block, um, and this dominant team. So yeah, it seems as though like they're making sure that he's comfortable with the car, making sure like he's gonna be successful as successful as possible. So yeah, I'm also picking Signs. I don't know how, but McLaren stole Bahrain from Racing Point, right? Um, Obviously because of the Racing Point two DNFs, but I think this is gonna be a tricky one, right? Because the McLarens don't seem like they are good in a power track, especially on straight line speed. I think the Renault engine is decent in straight line or in power. So yeah, I think we're actually gonna see this week that they might struggle a little bit. I am still picking Signs because I think his racecraft is phenomenal. I think it's great. I think he will find a way to nurse that McLaren, not really nurse, but to guide that McLaren to a better position. So that's why I'm picking him. Gasly, um, I don't know why, but the Toro Rosso slash AlphaTauri cars have always done pretty well in Bahrain. I don't know if you remember this, Wes, but back in 2018, Toro Rosso finished P4 with Pierre Gasly here, which is incredible, right? P4. So yeah, like, and last week, uh, he did pretty well as well, right? P6, right under Sainz. So yeah, there's gonna be. I picked these three because I think they have a good chance this week, just based on their perhaps racecraft. I am excited to see how Russell reacts wheel to wheel. Right, I think Russell is great when he has open air, but I want to see how he reacts when he's kind of close quarters racing. So, and I think Verstappen will give that to him this week, or maybe even Bottas. So yeah, let's go to my Bears. My Bears this week is going to be Albon, Kvyat, and Fittipaldi. Now, I don't want to be a bully, right? But I think, what's up?
First off, Joy, you picking Phil Capaldi, that's very un-American of you. How
It
dare
is. It
you?
is. It is. But okay, I think I have good reasons for it. Fittipaldi is the guy that hasn't raced in a while. Like I think he hasn't raced in like 1.5 year, 2 years. I haven't seen him in a racing series yet. Like so, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how he's gonna react when he's wheel to wheel. I don't know. I mean, he obviously right. He's operating a Haas. He's not gonna qualify really high. I think Magnussen has him in qualifying. Because Magnussen is, I think he is actually an underrated qualifier. But yeah, I don't think Fittipaldi, the new kid on the block, um, I don't think he's gonna do really well. I mean, it was for me, it was a toss up between Fittipaldi and Jack Aiken. I just think that, based on last week's result, I just think that the Williams are better suited to this track for some reason. Maybe it's just the abrasive uh, surface, track surface, that where Williams can manage the tires a little bit better. But yeah, Kvyat. I'm also picking Kvyat. I don't know. It always seems as though whenever Gasly is on it, Kvyat is not. Whenever Kvyat is on it, Gasly usually isn't. So yeah, I just never seen Kvyat or Gasly finish right next to each other unless they're finishing outside of the points together. So yeah, I also picked Albon. Right. I don't think he's gonna do that well. I think. Well, let me ask you, Wes. What's your expectation for Albon this week?
I have him on the outside looking in, so
Okay.
P5, P6.
Okay. Okay. I think P4 is a win for Albon. Right. I think P4 is a win for Albon. Anything lower than that, then Red Bull should just look somewhere else. Right. But yeah, that's why I'm picking him for the Bears. I think he will finish under P4. Um, so I mean, theoretically, he should be right behind Verstappen, and Verstappen should be right behind the two Mercedes. Um, but yeah, those are my Bears.
All right, that sounds good. And for those listening tonight, let us know who you think would be uh, worth watching and those who are not worth watching.
Who are
Like,
your Bears and Bulls?
yes, who are your Bears and Bulls? We would like to know. Maybe your takes are just as similar to ours, maybe completely different. Who
Hmm.
knows? But that's the point of us being a Formula One community here and a boxing community too, which we'll get to in a few seconds. But in the meantime, let's look forward to a good race on Sunday,
Hmm.
a bonkers qualifying on Saturday. And yeah, this 2020 season will be one to remember. Okay, on that note, we will now transition to our boxing portion of the podcast. Check hooks. Let's go. So, a lot of fights coming in this weekend. But let's go back and talk about the fights on last weekend. So, the highly touted Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. fight. By Triller, it was a pay per view. Everyone around the world was watching. But I want to start off with the co feature, which
Hmm.
was Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. Jake Paul having one professional fight under his belt. Uh, and if you are thinking about who I'm thinking of, yes, it is the brother of Logan Paul, and they are the YouTube duo. Very controversial bunch of brothers there. And Nate Robinson, who was a three-time NBA Slam Dunk champion and had a very, very respectable NBA career.
Hmm.
Um, Robinson thought that he could beat Jake Paul by saying that this fight is for his family and his NBA brothers, while Jake Paul wants to be a actual pro fighter fighting for titles and promised to knock out Robinson early. And we were watching. It looked like a very, very organized street fight. And then in the second round, Nate Robinson gets ding donged and face plants into the canvas. So knockout in two for Jake Paul. Joy, what is your reaction to that fight?
I think I think I told you last week that this was gonna be a street fight. It was gonna be a brawl. It's not gonna be very, like it's not gonna be an execution based fight. I don't think these guys had like game plans that was like cast from boxing boxing's very best trainers, and it showed. Like I said, I think I gave the analogy of like watching the most frustrating fighter, and both of us was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And multiply that by 10, you're gonna get Paul versus Robinson. And so I think I wasn't wrong, but I was wrong. I thought Robinson was gonna stick like there for a couple more rounds. I thought he was gonna be a little bit better of a boxer than Paul. I don't know why. It made maybe it's just because he played basketball, a little bit more hand-eye coordination. But yeah, I'm so surprised. Robinson just kept on diving. I mean, me and my brother Jordan were watching the fight, and like from the first round, like these guys were punching so wide. You could tell what punches were coming, and like you could duck, you could block them, you could parry their shots. Like yeah, like I thought like they weren't very fast, but you could see their punches coming. You could tell by their body language these guys were punching very wide. And so yeah, weird fight, but it was quite entertaining. But heads up, Robinson. I don't know about Paul going professional. He has to actually fight a professional fighter for that, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just laughing at it.
Yeah, Joy, while you're having your fun there, yeah, I do feel bad for Nate
Yeah,
Robinson
absolutely.
because, the dude got smacked.
He got
And,
smacked. He
he
walked
really
into it too.
he really needed the medical attention. You could tell, like, when he took out his mouthpiece, his mouth started bleeding and all
Right.
that. But the thing is, I thought he was going to fight from the outside because he's very athletic.
Right.
I thought he was going to dance around the ring, give Jake Paul a cardio test.
Right.
But no, I guess someone told him that this fight should be treated as World Star. And
Maybe it's because of his reach that his trainer told him like, "Oh, you have a smaller reach. You can't fight from the outside."
dude,
Not entirely true.
I mean, I've never heard of that guy. When they introduced his trainer, he looked like some guy that walks around and creeps at LA Fitness, man. Like, who the hell was that guy? I've never heard of that trainer before.
I actually didn't know that he announced his trainer, so I don't actually know. Maybe I just didn't really pay attention too much to this fight. I just wanted to see these two guys fight. But yeah, yeah. I mean, hopefully Nate is back and is healthy. And yeah, sorry Nate, but like he kept throwing the overhand right. You should have seen it coming. I mean, I will say, Jake Paul is Jake, right? Not Logan.
Yes.
Okay, I will say he has a decent overhand right. Not as good as Maidana, but
Yeah, I mean, it was flush, right? We got to
it
give
is
him that.
flush. Yeah.
And the thing is, yeah, Nate Robinson learned that you can't play boxing, right?
Mm.
But for Jake Paul, what I do want to say is challenging somebody like Conor McGregor, Dylan Dennis, and then your brother challenging someone like Floyd Mayweather, that's not a good idea. And, if you do get those fights, good for you. You're the one that's earning the big bucks anyway. What do I know? I'm just a
Right.
armchair analyst here with my best guy in the world talking about this. But yeah, man, I mean, good win for you, but you're asking for a lot after Nate Robinson. But on that note, let's go to the men of Saturday, which were Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
Mm.
So it was an 8-round fight, 2 minutes. We explained the rules last week, so you couldn't get knocked out, and scores were not official. So if you've been listening to us the whole time, I wanted Tyson to go the distance. Joy wanted Roy to go knock him out. And what actually happened was the two guys went the distance. And Tyson's very forward, pivoty approach actually worked in the fight,
Mm,
while Roy Jones Jr. actually controlled the outside. And even despite all that, I thought Mike Tyson won the fight.
right.
But thanks to people such as Chad Dawson, Christy Martin, and Vinny Paz, Chad Dawson thought the fight was a 76-76 draw. Christy Martin thought it was 79-73 for Tyson, which I thought made sense. And Vinny Paz thought it was 76-80 for Jones, hence making it a draw. And I loved it. I loved the fight,
I loved
but
it.
god damn,
Yeah.
those scorecards are horse shit. I don't know what you think, Joy.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I enjoyed the fight. I thought I wasn't gonna enjoy this fight, but I stand proven. Yeah, like Tyson, moved okay. He was able to kind of dictate where Jones was gonna go. I do see Roy Jones winning the outside fight. I thought he was able to move. He was able to kind of, dictate the distance between them. But the majority of these rounds weren't in the long range. They were close up. They were in the clinch, and that's when Tyson really just bullied him. And so, I thought Tyson actually won this fight. I thought Roy was gonna outlast him. I thought Roy had a lot more stamina just because Roy has fought more recently. But it seemed as though Tyson was just there. He was pretty much leaning a lot on Roy, and it tired him out a lot even faster. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We can't argue the results now.
yeah,
But hey, that fight I think opened up a lot of avenues for the sport of boxing. Well, first and foremost, it gave people entertainment
mm,
in a rough year,
mm,
right? So kind of like how I alluded to earlier, how 2020 allowed us to see the strange, especially
absolutely
in sports. This was part of the strange, in a good way, in a good way.
right.
And now Snoop Dogg is looking to or he has decided to create a boxing league in partnership with Triller.
Mm,
And the format is supposed to be similar to what we saw on Saturday with Mike Tyson and Roy Jones.
mm,
And because of that fight, it looked to me that Mike Tyson's stock as an athlete went up.
mm.
And guess who started calling Mike Tyson out?
Let me guess. I actually don't know the answer, but let me guess. Is it Evander?
It is Evander Holyfield with his 1.5 ears or whatever. He told Mike Tyson, or he it is reported that he has told Mike Tyson to get sign the contract and get back in the ring.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
oh gosh, uh,
I mean, have you actually seen the fights between Tyson and Holyfield?
I'm a little out of range for those, Joy.
Okay. Well, I when I was watching him, I thought Evander pretty much figured out Mike Tyson. There wasn't a lot Mike Tyson could have done. He was very frustrated when fighting Holyfield, and thus bit his ear off. But yeah, I was about to actually get on that. Like, it seems as though there's a lot of fighters that believe that they could come out of retirement. Now, I will say the boldest one of them is Oscar De La Hoya, claiming that he could step in the ring and fight Triple G, which I don't know. I actually really like Triple G. I rate him a lot. We're gonna possibly watch them together. But man, like, really, you're gonna call out Triple G? Like, I would rather see Oscar De La Hoya versus Marcos Maidana. Um, I mean, that was rumored to be the fight that was gonna be in line for Oscar.
Well, I mean, whatever, to each his own. And I don't have too much on Oscar. De La Hoya coming back.
Right.
I think he's just trying to get on the hype train. He needs to worry about his
Yeah.
promotion brand.
He just lost his
Um,
best. He just lost the face of boxing.
exactly, exactly. So I got if I'm Oscar, I got other things to worry about from a business standpoint, other than risking my body to go out there and fight a exhibition match or whatever, or
I,
even a official match against somebody that's still in form.
I think my favorite part of this fight was I think it was Snoop Dogg that was kind of enticing Sugar Ray Leonard to come back to the ring, and like Leonard's like, I've already been through a retirement and come back, and it didn't go well for him. So I thought that was really funny. The interaction with him and with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, that was actually a good group of announcers.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Israel Adesanya.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, and I hope we get to see something like that again. Maybe a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more responsible from a scoring standpoint. But hey, I think that fight was one for the ages, literally.
Mm.
Okay, but now let's shift gears into the fight coming up this weekend. So as we record this, this would be the night before the fight. I am referring to the Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia fight, and that fight is taking place tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time on a Fox Sports PBC pay-per-view,
Mm.
and it is for Errol Spence's welterweight titles. And
Possible fight with Bud.
Possible fight with Bud is on the line, or a Manny Pacquiao.
Hmm.
And this fight is a home fight for Spence, taking place at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. So, really, real quick, Errol Spence is a unified welterweight world champion,
Hmm.
and Danny Garcia, one of the more respected names in the division. Very, very aggressive fighter. Errol Spence, more balanced. And well, I want to know, Joy, who do you have for this fight?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I like to break it down. Just to kind of share what my thought process is. You hit it right on the head, Wes. Spence seems like the more balanced fighter. He could do pretty much everything, right? He could do outside. He could do inside. He has power. It seems as though in both hands. He's a southpaw, which already kind of makes it a little bit harder for orthodox fighters. And yeah, he seems like he has the better ring generalship than Garcia. However, Garcia is known as a very powerful fighter. Um, Keith Thurman, absolutely credits Garcia's power. Right? They fought together, and like Keith Thurman believes that Garcia has the power to really push Spence back. The thing about Garcia is that he doesn't really use a lot of movement. He likes to stay in the middle of the ring where he could really get a clear shot. The thing about Garcia is that his timing is his greatest attribute, right? His timing, he could time a lot of his opponents. He's a really good counterpuncher. And so I think this is going to be a good fight. A lot of people think that it's going to be like a unanimous decision for Spence. I mean, I've been watching a lot of Ryan Garcia, Danny Garcia's fights, and I actually really like Danny Garcia, the way he fights. And I think it's gonna be interesting. It's always gonna be a very intense fight whenever you're fighting Danny Garcia. Like I said, he has a lot of power. He has a lot of timing. He has great timing. And so yeah, I'm so curious to see what Danny Garcia's game plan is for Spence and what Spence's game plan is for Garcia. So yeah, I actually think that Spence is gonna win this fight, but I am quietly hoping that Garcia shows up because this is a lot of people are saying this is a make or break fight for Garcia. If he loses, he's lost to Thurman, he's lost to Sean Porter, and he's gonna lose to Errol Spence. So there's not a lot of names out there that he could fight after losing to Spence in a lot of these fighters. So yeah, I think Spence is gonna win. I think it's probably gonna be a majority or unanimous. I think he's gonna outwork him. Garcia, however, I'm hoping that he wins. I'm quietly hoping that he wins.
Very fair, Joy. I think we did have a early prediction
Yeah.
in a previous episode,
Mm.
but for me, yeah, I think you. I want to echo a lot of the points that you made, and of course, part of me wants to pick Spence because of what Garcia's dad said about the Dallas Cowboys logo, which I do not take very, very kindly. And I think I said Spence in 8 or
Mm.
something like that, and I think I'm gonna keep that.
Okay.
And
Stoppage or knockout?
stoppage.
Okay.
And I think the accident won't phase Spence too much. And for those who don't know, Spence was involved in a car accident. I think last year,
Yes.
and he has fully recovered since then. But and that's a lot of the talking points going into this fight. Is like, how is he gonna look after recovering from a car accident?
Right.
And I think he'll be fine.
I think he'll be fine.
And yeah, I think he's going to prove to us once again why he is among the best, if not the best, in the welterweight division.
Absolutely.
So, Joy, you have the majority. I have the stoppage. And for all our listeners tonight, that is Errol, the Truth Spence Jr., 26-0 with 21 knockouts, against Danny Swift Garcia, 36-2 with 21 KOs, for the welterweight world championship in Dallas, Texas, on Saturday, December 5th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, U.S. time, on Fox Sports PBC pay-per-view. And to wrap things up on our boxing chapter tonight, a couple fights that we wanted to cover that have already taken place. So before the Tyson Jones fight, there was Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. This was for the British Commonwealth title, I believe, heavyweights. And Joe Joyce KO'd Daniel Dubois in 10 rounds. And which was a shocking upset because Dubois was a young up-and-coming fighter, very close to becoming in the same conversations as Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. And this fight may have sent him back. He did have a broken orbital bone, I believe. And but on the bright side, it's not quite the end. 15-1, you're still in your 20s. You can always bounce back. As for Joe Joyce, this makes his stock back up, and he now has a reason to fight bigger names. And it's best of luck to both of them as they are trying to move on in their careers. And earlier today, Billy Joe Saunders, who is to be a known future foe for the face of boxing, Canelo Alvarez, retained his super middleweight title by scoring a unanimous decision over, his name is, let's see here, Murray. He beat Murray on unanimous decision with a score of 120-109, 120-109, and 118-110. So Martin Murray. And I feel like that super middleweight division, or middleweight, though, between those two classes, it's pretty stacked, pretty talented. And a lot of options out there for Canelo and Plant and Billy Joe Saunders, Triple G. Man, it's a good time to be a fan of the middleweight division right now. But do you have any thoughts on that, Joy?
No. I just pretty much on the Dubois fight. I think you hit it right on the head, right? So Dubois got to go back to the drawing table and like kind of just go back and try to build up confidence again, right? So I mean, he was in that name with Deontay Wilder. He's coming up as one of those primetime heavyweights. But yeah, I mean, you gotta come back.
Absolutely. And that's really what defines a champion. How do you handle adversity? But under than that, that is my quick wrap up for the boxing portion, aka check hooks.
Okay, great. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Run It Back podcast. We will be back next Friday, and we will cover the Sakhir Grand Prix review, and we will be doing our preview of the Abu Dhabi, the very last race of the season. I can't believe we actually had a full season for Formula One, and we will be back also with a review of the Spencer Garcia fight. It's going to be a packed show next week, so stay tuned.
Yeah, Joy, looking forward to it. And my gosh, it's really bittersweet. I don't want the Formula One season to end, but hey, that's what makes the sport beautiful. All good things come to an end, but then again, there's always a bright beginning not too long after.
Absolutely.
And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. Make sure to give us a like, so show some love, share some thoughts with us, and spread the word to your friends. And for Joy, this is Wes. Run it back, Nation. Stay safe and keep it on track.